All right. Good morning to those of you on the East Coast. Good morning also to those of you on the West Coast. I'm your host, Brandon Troy, also co creator of Movers and Shakers Unlimited. And thanks so much for joining us wherever you are watching from. As you know, every Saturday, we try to make it a point to give you the rundown or the goings on, if you will, in entertainment. In our, segment or our special edition shows that we have on Saturdays, known as This Week in Pop Culture. Of course, typically we try to do this show a little later in the morning, in the late morning, if you will, because I understand we do have folks that watch it on the West Coast, and of course, because of that time difference, it makes more sense. They want to participate live here to do it a little later, but we're going to be doing it just this week a little earlier. And of course, I'm not going to be alone in talking about some of the news stories that have made the rounds this week. So I want to welcome my co-host, Mr. Spillman Trueheart, aka Spills. What's going on, sir?
What's up, ladies and gentlemen? How's it going? Confetti. We're happy to see each other. I hope all the moms had a great Mother's Day weekend. I hope
Of
y'all got them
course,
this
of course,
shellfish towers y'all was supposed to. And let's get ready for Memorial Day. Excited for
for
another
sure.
great weekend topics.
Even though I will say this, when it comes to Memorial Day, it's exciting, but it's also slightly depressing because you're even further into summer and you're that much closer of being done with summer. Because at that point, what you just have June and maybe
It's the beginning of summer. It's
I
the
don't know.
beginning of
I
summer,
don't know.
ladies and gentlemen. Do you
It
hear this?
depresses me. It depresses me. I'm like, oh
Beginning
man, May
depresses
is
you.
already done. Like I want May to last longer. I want this summer to last longer.
Uh-huh.
I always get that
Okay.
feeling like, gosh, we're already at the end of May already? Really?
Already. Who
Already?
knew?
But anyway, with that being said, sir, let's dive into some of these, news stories. So over the course of this week, we did have the passing of, an icon, in the film industry, and that's none other than Roger Corman, passing away at 88, or I should say, excuse me, not 88,
98.
98.
He hung in
Excuse
there, ladies and
It is
gentlemen.
morning. It is morning, y'all.
We're early.
So 98. But in terms of his influence and what he has, the impact that he's had on the industry with, you know, careers that he has impacted, that he has had an influence on, and how that could have shaped the industry one way or another had he not been in the industry. So what are your thoughts on his passing and the impact that he's had?
The name Roger Corman doesn't pop immediately to me. I'm a big movie fan, but his name doesn't pop. But when I looked at like some of his accomplishments, it's amazing the amount of things that he did. Like, casting Jack Nicholson in some of his very earliest works, including Little Shop of Horrors, one of my all-time favorite stage plays, maybe one of the best. Um, Doing all the B movie stuff that he's done, just the titan of the industry. Sad to see him go. He lived a long and successful life, obviously, 98. Um, that's unless you get, unless one of those movie villains comes out of nowhere and gets you like 98, passing away at 98, while sad, it's still like, they lived a full life and we're happy to see that. So, um, just really, really disappointing and sad to lose such a titan of industry and, such an influential character. I don't know. You may have more insight on this because you're more of a movie buff than I am. What are some of your favorite projects by him?
Well, I would just say in general, a lot of the stuff that you commented on, I feel like it doesn't really need to be repeated because you've covered it for the most part. But I guess just in general, just the idea of it's always fascinating when everyone has their those folks that they look up to, right? Those folks that had an impact and inspired them to the career paths that they have. But a lot also oftentimes, like, because you have those heroes or those people that you look up to, you often forget that those same people, they themselves had their own heroes and their folks that inspired them and had an impact on their careers. So it's a constantly building a cycle, if you will. So of course, you hope to think that that in terms of the careers that the career that you have, it helps to inspire others to continue on that journey as well. So just considering just the artist that he has, helped have an influence on. I mean, you already talked about Jack Nicholson, but also Robert De Niro, Martin Scorsese. Like, come on, Martin Scorsese, one of the greatest, directors of our time. Um, just to say that you had an impact and an influence, their respective careers, insane to think about. Um, and it's all also great too because well, just as you were saying, I know you said that you weren't as well versed with Corman, but to also acknowledge someone who wasn't quote unquote an A-list filmmaker, and he completely owned the fact that he did low budget films and did B movies, so to speak, and to still acknowledge that, because I feel like so oftentimes people kind of get caught up in that that differentiation between quote unquote B movies. Oh, you're doing a B movie versus doing the, quote unquote, this Oscar movie with all these A-list actors, so to speak. And, to still acknowledge, someone who is, not placed in that category in terms of the type of films that they make. Also, how refreshing it is to have someone who, very well continued beyond that moniker or that reputation that he had as quote unquote a B movie director, and completely owned to it. Like I always find that refreshing too when in of something that may not oftentimes be looked at as cool or something that's recognized across the board, or placed on such a pedestal or pedigree, if you will, to be able to take ownership of that. Like, I'll give you an example of what I mean. Like, if we're talking about Nicolas Cage, right? Like, I love Nicolas Cage. I love Nicolas Cage movies, and I feel like oftentimes he kind of gets placed into that category of being kind of zany and eccentric. But I feel
Mhm.
like what I like that's so refreshing about Cage is that I feel like he's completely taken ownership of that. Like, he's like, yeah, I do a lot of weird stuff. And yeah, I'm gonna take ownership
You
of the
gotta
fact.
lean into it. That's right.
Yeah, I take ownership. I make weird choices in the roles that I do, but I enjoy that. I find that refreshing versus someone who is like, oh, I don't do this type of role, or I don't I'm above doing these type of things. So
I
yeah,
can't be a good guy that loses in movies.
hey,
That's a
hey,
lot of those.
hey look, I can't be an action star that can get hurt. So I'm just saying, I find it more refreshing when your action star is they're higher stakes because your action star is not invincible.
That's right.
So just saying,
Hey,
just
we're
saying,
just saying, ladies and gentlemen, we're just saying.
yeah, just saying. Not calling anybody out, but I'm just saying. Just saying. So,
So,
but yeah, rest in peace to Roger Corman passing away at 98. Any final thoughts before we hop into some of the other film news that came this week?
no, I think we got it for him.
All right, cool. So we had a sequence of other stories. I wanted to be able to, isolate, this the story about Corman, onto itself, because I wanted to be able to dedicate some time to that. But getting into some of the other, news bits that made the rounds, there are a couple of things that made the rounds. We have a news of a new John Wick spinoff with Kane. We have the MTV Movie Awards not happening, this year, and then we have Natasha Lyonne joining the Fantastic Four. So, Spillman, you hear the news about, some of these news bits that we have. Uh, I know we've been kind of, keeping track of the casting news that has been happening with Fantastic Four, but, what are your thoughts on some of the other parts that we have here with an award show that I feel like, in this era, this 2000, I guess what do you want to call it, millennial era, a lot of us
It's the
have grown up with
2020s,
that
baby.
award show. I'm just saying we have grown up with
Yeah.
that award show, and then also with this spinoff of already recognized franchise.
Well, I think the spinoff first is something we're interested in because, like I said, I'm an acolyte of the Gung Fu. I am a disciple of Gung Fu. Like whenever you can punch somebody and shoot them in the face at the same time, I'm showing up for that, ladies and gentlemen. If you can show me somebody get punched in the face and shot with a gun at the same time, or punch in the stomach and shot with a gun, or punch in the arm, shot with a gun. That's just entertainment to me. So Kane seems like he's with the Gung Fu, even though they didn't show him with as much Gung Fu. So maybe he'll learn some Gung Fu or go to the Gung Fu masters in the John Wick spinoff. So I'm excited about that. We've been pretty big on the John Wick franchise and spinoffs and stuff. The one about the hotel, that show has been pretty interesting so far. So I'm interested to see what it is. Again, John Wick is about the practical effects and stuff, so I champion them because I like real danger. Like, sure, it's safer to do the computer stuff, but I like people to risk their lives. I like to see that. Like, oh, that flip, if he doesn't do it right, he might be in a wheelchair, ladies and gentlemen. And that's what we like. That's why we love Jackie Chan. Because in Rumble in the Bronx, he jumped off that bridge and broke his leg. And you can see it in the movie because they put the clip, because he only did it once. He jumped off the bridge, landed, broke his leg, and you can see everyone crowd him, kind of, but you can see on the movie. That's what they did. They did it one time. He broke his leg.
His ankle? I think it was his ankle. But yes,
your ankle is in your leg, sir. It's in your leg. If you break your ankle, you're not walking too good after that. I promise you that. But
I will say, no, go ahead. Continue.
But yeah, that's how I feel about all that stuff. That's great. With the movie award, well, let's talk about it. Let's talk about how do you feel? Let's break it out that way. Let's just go ahead.
Okay, all right, so I guess in thinking of John Wick, and I will preface it with this because I'm under the assumption that many people know what we're talking about. So if anyone and if anyone has seen John Wick 4, I don't feel like this is a spoiler because it's in all the promotional materials, it's in the trailers. So John Wick 4, we were introduced to another assassin that was played by Donnie Yen. Yes, the iconic action star Donnie Yen, who is, AKA Ip Man for anyone who knows his other action franchise. But of course, he's done, other stuff. He's been in Blade 2. He's been in, I'm brain farting in Hero, and many other, iconic, action films. And his character was we come to know or find out that he's blind, but don't let the blindness.
Oh no, he was a blind master, ladies and gentlemen.
Like he was like that. He was on par with John Wick because I feel like so oftentimes, there's kind of this reverence that is kept for John Wick and how he is like at this level and everyone else is down here. Nah, he was right up there with John
Kane
Wick.
was up there with him, yeah, for sure.
Yeah, giving him some go. And he actually accomplishes something that no one else in the John Wick franchise manages to do in the entire franchise. I will just leave it at that without spoiling it. By the end of John Wick 4, he accomplishes something, or allegedly, I guess we'll say that he allegedly accomplishes something that no one else has seen, has been capable of doing over the course of 4 John Wick movies. So I will say I am surprised because there were other assassins that were introduced in that franchise, or say in that particular installment. I mean, we also had the other cat with the dog. I thought that they want to give him his own, spinoff film. In terms of some of the other projects that are going, I did enjoy the Continental. That was a lot of fun. But from what I understand, there's also another spinoff, and I feel like it's kind of gone under the radar, is if I recall, they're also supposed to be doing a quote unquote a ballerina spinoff. If anyone remembers from John Wick 3, when John Wick visited this theater, and you had all these ballerinas that we're supposed to be getting a spinoff off of that, off of what was introduced there. And we haven't really, I haven't really seen a whole bunch regarding that. So, I'm curious to see what happens with that, because I feel like that will give us a good indication of what we can expect from this Kane project. But one thing that I will say that I am excited about, aside from the fact that we have Donnie Yen, in our lead role, which is awesome, is some of the interesting things, because they did kind of tease it in the fourth installment, some of the interesting things they could do with a character that's blind, and how they can kind of reinvent some types of action sequences based on that fact that the character is blind. I feel like there's a lot of opportunity there of what you could do with that character, and what you can do with certain action sequences with a character that's blind. So that would be interesting. But I'll also say it provides them an opportunity too of kind of getting back to the roots of what made the first John Wick really great. Don't get me wrong, I like the franchise a lot, and we've talked about this on the show, as we have gone from installment to installment, the
it's got more gun fu here. He's
but I'm
turned from
saying,
gun fu
like,
to
the
Hong
suspension of
Kong gun
disbelief has gotten
fu.
crazier and crazier.
Oh yeah.
We're getting hit by cars and walking. We're jumping out of 2-story windows and walking away. We're falling down flights and flights of stairs and walking away to live to tell about it. Like, so
We're
I feel
fighting
like
up
this
a
provides an
mountain of
opportunity.
bad guys in Paris. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. So I just feel like this is an opportunity to kind of get back to the roots of, yeah, you have a character that's very capable. We understand that. But at the same time, they're not invincible. And this is, quote unquote, the real world. It is a heightened real world, but it still is, quote unquote, the real world. So let's, really acknowledge that fact that our character can still get hurt, and that things that should be happening under certain circumstances should be happening, and not, it shouldn't be cases of you're saying, come on, really? like come on. 'Cause there were so many times when that, and don't get me wrong, a lot of people had fun when I went to see John Wick, because I saw it more than once, and on each of those times that I saw it, you have folks reacting to some of the ridiculous things, like, come on, like people actually in certain moments were reacting to it, or laughing, because they couldn't believe what they were seeing as something that would realistically happen. So, but hopping into what is it, the MTV Movie Awards, or now the MTV Movie and TV Awards now. I remember back when it was just the Movie Awards. Um, it is, I feel like it is an end of an era. I mean, they are saying that they are working to trying to change the format, if you will, for any future shows, but at least this year it's not happening. Um,
Hmm.
there have been so many, I feel like, iconic moments from the MTV Movie Awards, and it has been a show that has been a part of my, dare I say, it's been a part of my upbringing, of being, of growing up, of looking forward to that show every summer, and some of the things that you have in that format of that show that makes it a unique experience, more so than any other show. A lot of times with the Golden Globes or the Oscars, very everything is very, haughty, and very serious, and I feel like with the movie awards, there have been a lot of opportunities where they have poked fun at the industry, and it's been fun. Some of the skits that have happened over the course of those award shows, that have been very memorable. Like, one that comes to mind is, I don't know if you remember this, but like when Ben Stiller was like imitating Tom Cruise for Mission Impossible, and he was like they had them both side by side, and he was like
Hmm.
mimicking like Tom Cruise and mimicking the scenes for that movie. Like, that was hilarious. And then even certain performances, right? Like, you have say what you will about the movie, but the soundtrack is great. Wild Wild West.
Oh
So
yeah.
the performances they had there. So Yeah, just so many iconic moments. But I'll punt it over to you. What are your thoughts on not having it this year?
I feel like this is a sign of what we've known for a long time with MTV, that this is a network that doesn't have a place anymore. Like, this award show was really what MTV did great. MTV, like even the Video Music Awards and all that stuff, has always been poking fun at the entertainment industry and like how serious all these people take these things, and they're like very heady things. Like, if you're an EGOT, you're a great thing, when really you just make movies and sing songs. Like, it's great that you do that, but you're not curing cancer or anything. And I think that as we've moved away from music videos and MTV to more reality based programming, they've lost space for things like this. So seeing where they're going to go is interesting, but I think that this is just indicative of MTV changing as a programming format. And what does it say about our culture that there's no space for thumbing your nose at authority? Like, I feel like, how is it that you can make more money, being a reality TV network than you could thumbing your nose at authority and talking about actual music? It's just kind of crazy that we're in a world where controversy sells more than actual real life, or, like, when's the last time you heard some music news on MTV? It used to be that all the news was on MTV. Like, when Pac passed away, it was like, oh my God, Tupac is dead. It's on MTV. That's what we have to watch it. Then it got to the other networks, but with the internet and everything, places for those kind of entities aren't the same as they used to be. So it's crazy. I think that now that would be replaced by like chat rooms or what have you, or like spaces like Reddit. But like, where is the MTV of today? Because there's not really an MTV of today. Like, the whole idea of like, yeah, like, there's no attitude like that anymore. I feel like we're in a whole new world. I love the MTV Music Awards. They were
Yeah,
pretty
I mean,
cool. They were pretty cool. I think my favorite thing from the MTV Awards was probably when Jim Carrey like showed up and they didn't know it was Jim Carrey. Do you remember that?
oh yeah, oh yeah,
Like,
yeah, yeah. I
who's
do
this
remember that.
long haired hippie guy? And they're like, oh shit, that's Jim Carrey. Oh no. Yeah, but just totally crazy. I wonder what they're going to do with it. But maybe if they lean into, like, because MTV is an alternative space and like a forward looking place, maybe if they lean more into the idea of like streaming platform movies and stuff, and putting them truly up on a pedestal. I feel like that's a lane that they can get into. That's really not, because the industry doesn't really have a differentiation between movies you see on TV. I mean, on the streaming platforms, and movies you go into the theaters and see. And I feel like there's a big difference between those two mediums, and there needs to be, like, a place for the streaming movies, because we don't know what the box office is on those. Like, it's all hush hush and stuff. So I don't know.
I mean, I think you actually brought up something that's very telling, and I mean, I don't think it's even just with with MTV. I mean, we could arguably say it's with ESPN too, right? Where
It's
we're
the
in a
same
different
thing.
day
Yeah.
and age where, yeah, where a lot of what made these two networks so unique is becoming obsolete now. We're doing with podcasting and other things, and what's now available. Like, you don't really need a show like TRL anymore. Like, you can check out music videos from your phone. You don't need to, like, put it up on Total Request Live, right? We have things that we can check out on our phone, like right there in the moment. Artists can debut it right there on their YouTube channel and still get the same marketing push that they would otherwise get on a music video show. You have the same thing going with sports as well, where your ESPNs. You have a lot of news personalities or sports personalities that have podcasts now. So there's not really a necessity or an incentive for them to get hired by a station when they can kind of create an audience of their own and create a reputation and a following themselves just with the podcast that they have that they're creating of their own merit. So, in that regard, I just feel like, and then also, not even talking about, the internet, right? Of talking about what we have with streaming. You have that capability now where things can be, streamed directly to you. Also oftentimes with what we have with some of our networks, like especially with Netflix, a lot of times they are, giving a peek at certain things, and they have their own quote unquote like promotions that they create. I forgot what it's called that Netflix does, but they kind of have this um they have this celebration, or this show that they do in which they kind of tease like their upcoming slate of projects. I'm brain farting on what it is right now, but I know that they've been doing it, recently, the last few years, or promoting it like I said, directly through their own channels, or through their own avenues. So a lot of these networks that kind of found a niche for themselves to provide a service that folks thought at one time they couldn't get anywhere else, that's no longer the case anymore. So what are you going to do in order to really distinguish yourself from your competitors to be able to still keep viewers coming? Because at this day and age, a lot of that stuff that people are checking out on MTV Movie Awards per se, you know these days they can get from the internet, or get from other sources. So it'll just be interesting to see what they will do to kind of rebrand, or to really try to refresh the format that they have done in the past. Because I will say, while it has been a show that I have enjoyed growing up, as I got a little older, I want to say once I hit like undergrad, the show became less and less appealing to me, and it often seemed like a lot of times those bits or those skits that they often did felt kind of forced, and it didn't really like fall for me. So I stopped watching less and less of it. I don't know if you continued to watch it, you know around that time, because I know that they were talking about, even in this in the article, and this is out of Variety, they were talking about how the pandemic played a role in how it didn't, if I recall, it didn't even have even do anything, if I recall, in the pandemic. But you have a lot of factors at play. Not only do you have the changing landscape of how people are consuming, get into some other times, I feel like we can dedicate a show to it, is the whole nature of what's going on with Paramount right now too. So
Mhm.
um but what are your thoughts on the last portion of what we have here with Fantastic Four?
Okay, I have a wild guess that who she's going to be playing. I have a wild
Okay, I'm
guess
all
that
ears.
maybe she's playing the Inhuman Crystal,
Oh, interesting. Okay.
because she's a
All
red
right. I can
hair.
see that.
She's famously a
I can
redhead.
see that.
She's cute, but looks like she's possibly from a different place.
I can see
She's
that.
kind of got that, like, I'm from Eastern Europe. I think she's going to be, I think she's going to be the Inhuman Crystal, Johnny Storm's girlfriend in the movie. I think she does great work. I love Natasha Lyonne. She's great with characters. She's got that grungy '90s aesthetic that we all love and cherish so much as elder millennials. So I think that's really where they're going to cast her. I'm interested to see who she actually is casted in. Maybe she is also, should they also be casting her as I think her name is Alicia, the blind woman that falls in love with the thing. Maybe she's her.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I can see that. I can
One of
definitely
those
see
two
that for
characters. I
sure.
think that's who she's playing. One of those two. So
I would say the latter. Out of the, because I like those choices. I would go with the latter, and that's only just because of me thinking of the age difference that we're talking about here, of the
that's
actor that
true.
they have playing Human Torch. Um, not to say that it's not impossible that there could be an age difference where you kind of
Hey,
have that
hey,
that
you
cougar
know,
aspect
I
of
have
with
romance.
the
You know,
younger,
hey, you know,
you know, hey, hey, I'm
no
not gonna
dick,
like
but you know.
completely throw it out. Not gonna completely throw it out. Maybe she a cougar and she ended up getting someone far younger than her, or not far younger, but younger.
There you
Um,
go.
but in thinking of that, I want to say maybe it would be an example of the blind character, of Alicia, that you were mentioning, because I do have we've talked about this before with some of the other actors that we have, because some of them still haven't been acknowledged as to who they're going to be, and I have a feeling that we'll probably get an official announcement at perhaps an upcoming show that's on the West Coast this July, perhaps, of who those other people may be. So I'll keep you guys posted, because I have a feeling that's when
Ooh.
we'll get that announcement. We'll see. Uh, uh, but with that being said, she could very well be playing Alicia. I've always said, I know we were talking about John Malkovich. I still feel like he's going to be playing the dad, Papa Richards.
That's a
And
throwaway character. I don't think so. I don't think so. There's not enough. I don't feel like there's enough lore for someone of his stature just to be the dad.
like I
No.
said, I do, and it's only just because of what we already have with Kang, and Kang, being quote unquote a descendant of Reed Richards. So it allows you to kind of have that connective through line there. And then on top of that, it allows John Malkovich to do something cool in a Marvel movie, but not necessarily have to be in multiple Marvel movies. It's kind of the same thing that you have with Russell Crowe. Like, Russell Crowe is playing in a quote unquote important character, but he doesn't need to appear. He may appear, but he doesn't need to appear in multiple movies. He can kind of say, "Oh yeah, I did a Marvel movie. That was cool. That was fun. But I don't want to dedicate
Okay.
10 years to do it."
Maybe.
So,
I don't know, ladies and gentlemen. I still think.
I do like your guess. I do like your guess for Natasha, though.
Yeah.
I do definitely like that one, because I can
Yeah.
definitely see her pull it off, which is interesting, because if that were the case, for those that are my trivia folks out there, she has played a blind character before in a comic book movie. If you guys recall,
Really?
she was in Blade Trinity and she was blind. So
There you
there
go.
you go.
I mean,
There you go.
she has to stick in the closet, ladies and gentlemen.
Multiverse.
She'll be
The
waving it
multiverse.
around. Yeah.
The multiverse, folks. There you go. She was a variant. There you go. Just kidding. Maybe she was a Alicia variant in that Blade universe. I'm just kidding. But no, she was blonde in that franchise. And Marvel, as we know, or say Blade, as we know, is a Marvel character. And
Yeah.
allegedly, we will get Blade in some multiverse related films in the near future. So it will end up being canon, from what I hear. So, but any last thoughts before we get into our news stories? Because I know you want to dive into this one. I'm looking forward to see what you got to say about this, man. So,
I'm ready for that. But
that's gonna wrap
no,
up.
I don't have anything else.
Go ahead. All right, bet. So that's gonna wrap up what we have with a lot of our film news. But I wanted to get into our sports news. And so this week we had quite a bit of things that are happening this week. We had the NBA draft combine happening, and then we also, of course, still have the NBA playoffs happening, and some of the results from what has happened in the the upcoming in the current matchups, I should say, and then also the news of the New Jersey Nets retiring Vince Carter's jersey. I'll leave it up to you, Spills, which one you want to dive into first. I'm guessing you want to dive into the first one, but maybe I'm wrong. Maybe you want to save that.
Let's get to let's save that for last. Let's save that for last, because
okay.
This is an interesting draft.
Okay,
but,
so what do you want to dive into first?
Let's start with New Jersey. Let's start with the Vince Carter.
Jersey.
Let's start with Vince Carter.
Yes,
this is very controversial. I don't think that Vince Carter deserves to get his jersey retired in New Jersey. I mean, he was great there. He dunked on Alonzo Mourning at one time, but
yes,
they took a step back when they got Vince. They didn't take a step forward when they got Vince. Like they was in the finals before they got Vince, then they got Vince, and now they were struggling to get past that second round. So I feel like the New Jersey time is the difference. Like obviously Vince Carter had a great career, greatest dunker of all time in my book. In my book, you know, because
his best years.
His best years was in Toronto.
Air Canada.
In Toronto. Yeah.
Don't get me wrong. He still had ridiculous highlights. You know, in that era that he was playing with Jason Kidd, he still had ridiculous highlights. But I feel like
the fact that they're retiring. Yeah.
I feel like we could both agree that he was slightly coming off of his prime once he got to New Jersey. Like he had those couple of years that he was like insane, you know, and those last couple of years that he had in Toronto. And then once that year that he had gone to New Jersey, he had taken a slight step back. He was not, you know, the Carter that we knew prior to that. And that's not saying anything because he was still a really good, you know, player. Even he was
a borderline all-star by then. I feel like if he was not playing in the tri-state area, he wouldn't have been making the all-star team at that time.
Yeah.
He was on the borderline at that point, but I just feel like, and this is the New Jersey Nets, not the Brooklyn Nets. If that makes sense, that's interesting.
Yes.
I've never heard of a team that don't exist no more. But also, this is another thing. How did Vince Carter get his jersey retired before Richard Jefferson? I feel like that is crazy to me. Or Jason Kidd. I haven't heard Jason Kidd got his jersey retired. Like, what's going on here? Is he dating like the owner's sister or something? Like, how did he get? I love Vince Carter. Like.
I feel like it may just be an example of just like momentum, you know, with everything that's going on with, you know, him being inducted into the Hall of Fame because he did have a Hall of Fame career.
It's a Hall of Fame career, but
no one would argue that. So I think by virtue of just the momentum of that just helped snowball into what we have here with New Jersey Nets, where, you know, they're, you know, getting onto that, you know, that train, if you will, of you know, getting their 2 cents of saying that they have the, you know, this Hall of Famers jersey retired, you know, in their facility. Maybe it wouldn't happen, and I could be wrong, but maybe it wouldn't happen if we didn't have that momentum of him being inducted into the Hall of Fame. So I think that has played a role, you know, in that. But with all of that being said, you know, congratulations to him anyway.
Congrats, Vince. I feel like if they do it, they did it.
If we're talking about the entire resume, Hall of Fame career, you know, Vinsanity, Air Canada, you know, incredible career. Time that he had with the Raptors, with the New Jersey Nets, and you know, I'll even say this of how effective he still was going into, you know, the latter part of his career. You know, he was still an effective, you know, player. He may not have been the all-star that we had been accustomed to seeing, but if we're factoring in, you know, the mileage of how long he had been playing and the fact that he could still get up, like he could still get up even in the latter part of his career. He had flashes where you were like, oh snap, like that's the, you know,
he's still Vince Carter. Like, he's still Vince Carter.
Years ago, he was still getting up. He was still posterizing people. He was still doing this going to the latter part of his career. So but any, you know, last thoughts before we dive into like the mock draft or even the playoffs?
Yeah. I you know, again, I love Vince Carter. Like, I had the poster on my wall. We all had the poster on our wall. The Olympic poster where he literally dunked on somebody so hard they contemplated ending their own life.
He cleared a 7-footer.
That's right.
Cleared a 7-footer, y'all.
They call it the dunk of death in French.
Let that sink in. He didn't do this in a dunk contest because I want to.
He didn't say, "Hey, stand there. Go ahead. Please, can I jump over you?" No.
Yeah, it's not the same. It's not something that he set. It's not something that he set up, it was in a game. Like it wasn't planned. He just did it like just instinctually in a game. That's insane. A 7-footer.
A
So
footer. So yeah, but again, New Jersey was way after he was doing this kind of stuff. But still, good for him.
still.
Let's move on to the NBA playoffs. I guess. Would you want to do that, and then we can talk
Tell you
about
what,
the draft, or
into
do
the
you want
mock
to do that
draft.
the other
I
way?
feel like the mock draft feeds
Okay.
into what we're talking about the playoffs. So, with
Okay,
the
that
mock
works.
draft, of course, getting into just that idea of, you have a lot of these players that are aspiring to, make, get into the league, right? And, they're demonstrating, all the skills and capabilities that they have as players. So, all the intangibles, whether it's, their athleticism, their, ability to shoot, to dribble, to play defense, like all those skill sets that are necessary to be successful in the league. And there were a lot of stories in here, and I guess the one that has overshadowed so many players that are probably you know more talented based on what they have accomplished in their collegiate careers is, of course, Bron James, and people wondering if he would be able to match up with a lot of these prospects. And to his credit, like, he has done as well as you could possibly do, and has raised his value over the course of this combine. So, what are your thoughts on that? And what are your thoughts maybe on some other, highlights that haven't really gotten a lot of, a lot of talk with some other players?
Well, ladies and gentlemen, this is if this is what you would consider the draft after the draft. Excuse me. Sorry about that, ladies and gentlemen.
No problem.
Yeah. The pollen is kicking my butt.
And it's allergies. These
Yeah,
allergies,
it's the
man.
season. It's the season.
It is.
Yeah. So this draft, no one knows. Excuse me. No one knows who's the clear number one. There is no clear number one. Maybe it's the kid from Purdue, but they don't play
Yes.
basketball like that in the NBA no more. But I feel like he's a guy that you would have to draft because he's the exact type of body that would bother somebody like Victor Wembanyama. Sure, Victor can run up and down the court with him, but if you got a guy like, I as a big man, if a guy is 50 pounds heavier than you and he's leaning on you for 48 minutes, I don't care how much faster you can run than him, that leaning, that be something. Him pushing at him.
Yeah, and I feel he definitely needs to add some muscle on the frame that he has. Like, he's undoubtedly, Wembanyama is undoubtedly a talented player, and I definitely see, because a lot of people are saying that, the players that we have now really need to kind of, or at least the older players really need to kind of get their last hurrah in, because he's coming, and I do believe that he is coming.
It's over for
But
the old players.
yeah, but I will also say, while he did put on some muscle from when he first came into the league, he still has a slender frame. And there have been times, in watching him match up against a lot of those players that he will continue to match up against over the course of his career, pushing him around, because he's not a big guy, big in the sense that he's not not a Giannis. He's
Yeah.
not a Giannis yet. And when Giannis came into the league, he had he was he wasn't I feel like he wasn't as skinny as Wembanyama, but he wasn't the
He was
Giannis that we know him to be now.
he was that same
So,
kind of skinny
I feel
though,
like
for
there's still
sure.
work to be done.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's still work to be done with him adding muscle to that frame, so that way that doesn't become something that hinders him with the talents that he already has. Because I feel like he has everything else. He just needs to get bigger. He just needs to add some muscle
Yeah.
to his frame. But I wanna dive in and briefly into you are a big LeBron fan. So what are your thoughts on what we've seen thus far with Bronny, and the criticisms that came in prior to this mock draft?
You know, we did say, you know, there was a term last year that was very famous, and we said that there were certain
Okay.
industries that were quote unquote immune to having these people in them. But I feel like this is an example of you could be a Nepo baby in basketball. You could be a Nepo baby
I was wondering if
because
you were say it. It seems like you were going around the
I've always said personally, like Bronny's shorter than they've been saying he is. They said he was 6'3" on the thing. They said he's like 6'1", 6'2". That doesn't seem like NBA size.
They were adding 3 inches. That's a big difference, 6'1" and 6'4". But
That's a big difference. So, you know, I like that he's going through the drills. That's great and all, but you know, basketball is not drills. We don't it's not like gymnastics where you go through a routine and we score it based on how well you do the routine. No, you play against real people. Like you got to shoot against real people. We have not seen that Bronny has demonstrated the level of skill to shoot on that level or score on that level.
well, I will say this: he did have a couple of scrimmages, and he did, you know, have a solid scrimmage on day 2, where he was, you know, quote unquote the player of the game. But I feel like we've seen a lot of flashes of what he's capable of, but there hasn't been a level of consistency. So, you know, while he'll, you know, break out and have, you know, an 18-point game, he'll have another game that's like 4 points. You know, he'll have another game that's like 15, and then he'll like maybe have 2 points. So like I feel like he has the capabilities, he has the tools that are needed, and he has flashes. Like if I were to put this in a motif or break it down, if I'm talking about anime, right? He's very much a Gohan versus a
no,
Goku.
he's not Gohan. He's Yamcha. He's not
Yo,
Gohan. He's not Gohan. He's not
yo,
Gohan. Like I just like I really it's frustrating because people will tell you sports is a meritocracy. All you have to do is be good at sports. Like if you're actually good, you're gonna get a shot. They can't deny how good you are. But I feel like with the Bronny stuff, I feel like Bronny is just because his name, like if we did not know, if his name was not LeBron James Jr. on his birth certificate, no one, he probably wouldn't have gone to USC. He probably wouldn't have really even been playing for Sierra Canyon because like Sierra Canyon, he's like on the second string on Sierra Canyon, and that's like one of the best schools in the country. To me, if you're on the second string on one of the best high schools in the country, you're probably not going to make the NBA. Probably. Like it's a high night in the 90s. Like maybe the best player on Sierra Canyon will make the NBA or the top 3 or 4, but to be a guy coming off the bench most of your high school career, because like let's be honest, Bronny was not he wasn't a number. He, you know, Dwayne Wade's son left there because he wasn't getting playing time. Bronny really wasn't getting playing time because there's other kids that was better than him on the team. And we're not even talking about those kids right now. We're talking about Bronny like he's the like USC went to the Final Four or something. They didn't go to no Final Four. Like I feel like if you're actually good enough to beat people and beat your contemporaries, like I feel like that's what we're really evaluating. How much better are you than the other guys at your age? And I don't think that he's better than anybody, really. Like anybody that else that's in the draft. And like, you know, it's not a lot of people that's in the draft that we know of. And Bronny is like driving the media. And I feel like that's a down year thing that they're doing just because it's a thing I know. But I don't feel that Bronny's good enough, honestly. Maybe the G League, but you know, tweener guards, those unfortunately, that's a dime a dozen guard. Like a guy that's not really a point guard, but he's point guard size. I don't think so. And like he's not even like you would no one is saying he's the best guard in the draft or anything crazy like
oh
that. They're not even saying
no,
nothing like that.
no.
They're like, oh, he's doing pretty good. That's a bad sign to me. But
Well,
you know,
I'll say this, and you know, I'll say this only by virtue of the fact that I have gone on record many times, and we've gone back and forth. Is that LeBron James is not my GOAT. He is top 2 player of all time. He's right behind Jordan. But I will be objective and say this: if I'm comparing some of those, intangibles, those skills that he did demonstrate in the combine. And like you said, mind you, it was something where he, some of those drills, it was on his own versus against competition. You still can't deny that it is something that is demonstrating, athleticism and ability. I think maybe you disagree. I feel like he is a better shooter than LeBron James is.
You're crazy.
And
you're crazy.
I didn't say a better scorer. Wait, I didn't say
he's not a better shooter than LeBron James.
I didn't say a better scorer because there is a difference. I didn't say a better scorer. I said a better shooter. So, like, give me an example. You have someone like, let's see, Steve Kerr. Steve Kerr is a shooter, but he's not a better scorer than LeBron James is. So that's what I mean by a shooter in terms of, his form, of how fluid the form is when he is shooting the ball. And he even demonstrated it when he was in shootouts. I mean, yes, it was instances where if you're just doing the shooting drills that you don't have a defender in your face, but I'm also looking at it within the context of if you have someone who can collapse the defense, and if you can demonstrate that if the ball is kicked out to you, that you can knock down open shots, that's still something that is valuable for a team, because we've seen it time and time again, even in the playoffs right now, where we have players that is their only job, is just to hit open shots when they have no defender on them. When they have their star player collapsing a defense, they need to have someone that they can kick it out to be able to make a shot when they are open. And we've seen it time and time again where there have been players that have just with that one job have been unable to execute that one job. And so with that being said, in regards to Bronny, I feel like under the circumstances of having someone who can, attract a lot of attention, and if you can demonstrate that you can knock down open shots, that is still a valuable skill that teams are looking for. He's not, when it comes to his athleticism, he's demonstrated he had a 40-inch vertical. Like, it's not like he's
everybody has a 40-inch vertical that's in the NBA for the most part. I feel like that is not. He's got a 40 and he's 5 inches shorter than his competition. That's what the issue is.
You have players that are that same height and cannot dunk. So
there's nobody in the NBA that can't dunk, though. There's nobody in the NBA that can't dunk. Maybe Chris Paul can't dunk. Maybe. But Chris Paul's 1,000,000 years old. We've seen him dunk before, but there's nobody in the NBA that can't dunk.
We will discuss that component of it.
To me, I feel like this is the thing. This is the thing. Me and you have played with people with 40-inch verticals.
Yeah, of course.
It's not that uncommon. A 40 is a 40. I feel like if you have to have a 40-inch vertical to dunk if you're 6'1". I feel like that's just how it goes. You have to jump that high. I just feel like we're moving the line for Bronny in a way that we've never done for any other player.
And look, I'm not going to be crazy on here and say, "Oh, he's a starter right now." No way, he's not a starter right now. But
I don't feel like he's as good as Austin Rivers was.
But I'm also saying this too. If we're talking about other examples of quote unquote nepotism, if I'm comparing him against some of those other players who clearly are in the league because of nepotism, he's better than those folks.
You talking about Giannis? Giannis isn't undersized. I would pick Giannis over Bronny James. You can't teach 6'10". Giannis is 6'10". I disagree with you on this one. I feel like having a 6'10" body is something that's athletically different than
placed in the right. I feel like being placed in the right situation. I don't feel like he should be playing with the Lakers. I mean, I can't control whether or not.
No, I don't want him on the team. I pray to God that they don't draft that boy.
I can't control whether they do or don't draft him, but I feel like placed in the right situation, not playing with his father, that he can be a solid player in the league.
Well,
that
I'll say this. If he could have been a solid player in the league, you could have been a solid player in the league.
Oh, okay. All right. Okay then.
Yeah. I don't think that LeBron James Jr. is that good. I think his little brother is better than him. I think if
No,
we was
I
talking about his
agree with
little
that.
brother,
I
again, I've
agree
said
with
this
that.
every
He's
single
going to be a
time.
better
His little
prospect.
brother is more of a
Yeah,
prospect than he was, for sure.
I absolutely agree with that. I absolutely agree in terms of where he would fall in the draft. It would be higher than Bronny, very much so.
Yeah. I think he
But
might be a late first rounder at this point in his development. But for me, Bronny, and plus, Bronny's got health issues. I feel like we're ignoring the fact that he like had health issues. And I don't want to talk ill about people with health issues, but generally, a health issue like that eliminates you from playing at this elite level because something like
but he
that
did
is
get
something that's
because he did he got cleared. So and they
he
had
got
multiple
cleared,
doctors. They had
but
multiple doctors.
I feel like
So I mean, I
I
try not
hey,
to use that
when you have that kind of
as
LeBron money, I don't trust that. I honestly don't trust that. To say that he has multiple doctors, LeBron could buy a doctor, ladies and gentlemen. It's not impossible for him to say, no, Bronny can play. He's okay to play. We've seen it happen with rich parents all the time. So I don't know.
fair,
I don't know.
fair, fair.
I don't know.
So NBA playoffs, we're in an interesting spot because we have two matchups right now that are going to game sevens.
Oh
So
yes.
two semifinals that are going to game seven. So, what are your thoughts on some of the matchups that we have remaining and the recent games that we've had? I think it's great, but I
Oh
want to hear your
yeah.
thoughts.
Well, I'm actually in the city of York right now, ladies and gentlemen. I
Yes,
am
you
in
didn't
New
say
York
that. You didn't
City.
mention that. Yeah.
I am in New York City right now for a little bit of R&R. But the people are wearing the blue and orange. I've been seeing them head to toe. They are ready. They're ready in this town for their Knicks to go back to the conference finals for the first time in God knows how long, maybe 30 years, possibly this century. I don't think that they've been to the conference finals in this century. Which is a crazy thing to say because it doesn't feel like it's been this century, but 24 years into a century, you could say this century. I feel like they should have been in the conference finals in that time. They've had the Carmelo and all them boys, but the city is alight. Everything seems to be going good, so I can't wait to see what they do on Sunday evening. I looked at
And
the
credit to
tickets.
Nova.
I looked at the
That
tickets.
Nova,
Oh yeah.
that Nova
Oh
pedigree,
yeah. Josh Hart
that Nova
from the
pedigree is
city.
carrying
Josh Hart from the city. That's right.
Nova pedigree. So
That's right.
him, Brunson, man,
That's
they're
crazy.
having an incredible year.
Yeah.
And I don't think anyone even anticipated they would be making it as far as they would be. I feel like at this point, because correct me if I'm wrong, if we're looking at like the lineup right now, Brunson, he was on the prior Olympics team, but he's not on this current roster that we have upcoming with all the superstars that we have on it. But I feel like an argument can be made that he needs to be a part of that team, that he needs to be added to that roster with the type of year that he's having this year. I feel like he's earning himself a spot. I don't know how you feel about it, but
I feel like he's playing that bully ball. I feel like look, Brunson's about the same size as LeBron James Jr. And I don't see LeBron James Jr. carrying the team like Brunson's doing. I don't see it because he would have won in the big dance. Jalen Brunson's won at every level with his team and showed people that no, I am the best
I
guard in
will
my.
say, we're talking about two different players, right? I didn't say that I see Bronny James being an all-star. I'm not.
No one said that about Jalen Brunson coming into the league. They said he might be a tweener because he is kind of a tweener, but I feel like he has a skill set that separates him that Bronny James does not. I don't feel like Bronny James could go to the post like that. I don't feel like he could do the bully ball stuff that he does. I don't feel like, hey, Bronny, dribble the ball all the time and carry this team. I've never seen that. And that's crazy because LeBron James is known for having court vision. I've never seen Bronny having court vision or any kind of vision like that. So I hate to go
My
back to
only
that last
concern is
topic.
this. Oh, no, you're fine. You're fine. But my only concern is this about Brunson, is that I feel like we're getting some deja vu of Thomas when he was playing with the Celtics. If we remember, it was
Mm-hmm.
Isaiah Thomas of the Celtics. And he was having an incredible year. He had that run where he was in the playoffs and he was killing. Like he was crushing everybody. And he was just like same thing, tweener. Like he was small. He was even smaller than Brunson. He was like what 5'9", 5'10", if we're really being like generous. But he was still like taking over games. And after that, like that 1 year that he had that breakout year, people had his number, and they sniped in on him. And once that happened, I feel like he never really was the same after that. So I hope, and it's because I'm a big fan of Brunson, that there's not going to be a similar deal, that people are really going to tune into him, in years to come. And because of that, he's not going to be, the Brunson that we've had these last few years. Because I mean, he started to show glimpses of it when he was with Dallas. Can you imagine if Dallas just kept him and didn't, let go of him? With the crew that they have now, it's insane to think about. But I just hope that we're not going to get a repeat of that, where he has this incredible season, and because now players and teams are aware of him, and they're not caught off guard by how good he is, that it affects him, his how effective he is going forward into his career.
Yeah, but I feel like Isaiah, and famously, I feel like this run is similar to the Isaiah Thomas and also the Derrick Rose run,
Yes.
where Derrick Rose went to the finals that year, and then the next year
Yeah.
he got hurt. He got hurt in the first round or so, because
Yeah.
tips be that usage be crazy. So
And
I
I
don't know.
mean, him as a
But
coach, and it's not a slight against him, but that's just how he coaches. He really like pushes his players to the limit, and that's another thing that concerns me, is that if you're really pushing your players to that degree, in the same way that you kind of have, you can arguably say with the Heat too, in terms of how hard nosed they are, is that A, is it sustainable? And B, what does that look like for sustainability with the player's career going forward? Whether they're with the Knicks or if they move on to another team, how is it going to affect their longevity going forward if they, push themselves that hard and that consistently under, a coach who really, really pushes his players to the limit. So
yeah,
but I
but
will
I feel
say that
like
I
the
am
one thing
excited
for
about.
Brunson is he has a grind game. I feel like if he was a high flyer, I'd be more worried about him. But the fact that he's doing the ground and pound kind of game, that kind of thing, I think that even though
And is he a
you
dunker?
can get injured, no, he doesn't.
Is
He
he a
doesn't
dunker?
dunk, but he can dunk. If you don't think that Jalen Brunson can't dunk, you're crazy. You're crazy. I just feel like to think that they're like to think, because like most NFL players can dunk, most of them, right? Most, I wouldn't say most NFL players can
I
dunk.
don't know, because if I'm thinking of kickers and I'm thinking of quarterbacks, yeah, they
I
have
feel like
incredible, arms to be able to throw, but I don't know about athleticism of jumping like that for quarterbacks.
I feel like you're disrespecting all those 6'5" guys, because most quarterbacks are like 6'5". So to
Barely,
me,
like barely dunking. I'm not talking about that
I
little,
don't.
like little tap dunk. I'm talking about like
I feel like
getting up and like with ease and piking it down. I'm not talking about like, oh, I can barely touch the rim and I can get up there because I'm 6'4", 6'5".
I feel like
I'm saying like getting up
this
there.
is the hate, ladies and gentlemen, of a man that cannot dunk. Brandon, have you ever dunked? That's what we're asking. Now the question's coming out.
I have.
You have. So
I have.
this is again.
I have.
If you're 5'10", you're 5'10".
I'm not even gonna be that generous. I'm a little shorter than that. I'm not even gonna be that generous.
And you can dunk a
So
basketball, but you don't think every single person
in
in the NBA can't dunk a basketball. That's crazy to me. Think about it. Think about it when you say it like that. You're like,
yeah. The ease at which, okay, that's fair.
Yeah.
But can we arguably say there are levels to that athleticism.
I'm not saying that all rim rockers. I'm not saying it like,
barely
no, that's not what I'm saying.
I'm saying grazing it in versus actually piking it down.
I feel
Can we agree to that? There are levels to this.
I feel like you're making a distinction that doesn't truly exist because, you know, if somebody barely grazed and dunked on you, it wouldn't be any difference if they like really dunked on you, quote unquote,
like
because
if they're
both
grazing,
of them, like
I feel like if you're grazing to get to the rim, that you're not going to have the athletic hang, you know, the ability to hang time to be able to actually dunk on somebody, because even without a player being there in the way, that you probably are not going to get to the rim, because you're, even under the circumstances of not having someone there, you're just barely grazing.
I'm happy that this is going out to the internet because they can see the level of hater you are right now. I feel like there's a level of hate that's way up there with you right now. I don't understand how it's the level of hate, but that's crazy. That's crazy. But you know, not to just ramble on, ladies and gentlemen, but I just feel like that is a good series. The city is crazy. We have 2 more series that are actually still going on. The Celtics closed out the Cavaliers because you know that's what they do.
They did.
But
I don't feel like anyone saw the Cavs really going past where they got. So
it was a consolation prize. Yeah, good job getting to that second round, Cleveland. Yeah,
right. But I don't think anyone had them going to the conference finals or even going to the finals. So it's not shock.
At all.
But credit to, like, man, this T-Wolves, this Nuggets series, man, this is gonna go up there. This is gonna go up there as one of those like iconic series, because it's been so chaotic. Like, you know, a lot of times when we're talking about a lot of these series, you know, you'll have, you know, a sweep, you'll have a gentleman's sweep, or even when you have those series where it goes 4-2, like all the games are close. They're still tight games, but like there's so many fluctuations in the games that we've had in this series, where when the team has won, when that one team has won, they have won convincingly. It's never been like a close game. In either case, it has been like a blowout in either case. So it's like, wow, like this is really a incredible matchup where they are giving each other, it's like, you know, if we're talking about boxing, like they're giving each other those, you know, those gut punches back and forth, and like really, you know, punishing, you know, each other, which is, you know, great to watch in terms of you know, seeing those matchups, you know, play out with the teams. But yeah, it's been an incredible series.
So do you think that the fact that Dallas is up is an indictment of why Shea was not the MVP? Because I don't feel like if the Thunder were down 2-0, that they would pull it to a game 7. I feel like if they was down 2-0, it'd just be over. I feel like they might have won 5 games. They might have won 1. They might have gone 5 games. It's gone 2 games. It's gone 5 games here. But I just feel like it's not the same. I feel like there's some of these games that Shea and them should have won decisively. I feel like looking at it, they've won.
I would take it back to what is so often, I hate to use kind of like a tried and true example, but I do feel like this is an example of it. I do feel like it is an example of age. Like if you're not used to having this level of success, which, you know, they really had a breakout year this year, you know, you're going to have those speed bumps where, you know, I feel like you kind of have, and which I feel like is often the case even in just success that people have in general. Like I feel like you know, when you're not as experienced, sometimes people might have like imposter syndrome, where they're like, gosh, do we really, you know, deserve to be here? Or, you know, we're not accustomed to really being in these tight situations. Like if we're winning, you know, we're winning decisively. And, you know, so oftentimes in what they have demonstrated, they have been winning decisively. And so what does that look like when a team really tests you? You know, if you're a younger team, are you really going to be able to respond appropriately to that versus, you know, a veteran team? You know, you understand that teams are going to go through, you know, routes where they have a lot of momentum and you just have to respond appropriately. But, you know, when you're a younger team, psychologically, that can look a little different versus someone who's accustomed to, you know, things like that happening in a given series. So I think it's more so a team as a whole, an example of going through that growing pain of knowing that, you know, the playoffs are a different beast. You know, yes, in your prior matchup, you may have had, you know, a easy go, but, you know, each matchup that you have is going to be different. They're going to be teams that you're going to route, you know, you're going to sweep, and they're going to be teams that you're really going to have to go into the trenches with and really battle. So I think that that's what they're coming across now.
Yeah. I just, I see that. I feel like Kyrie and Luca, it's their time right now. I feel like, a lot of times you see in sports where younger teams will get consolation prizes and not true consolation prizes, but like, you know, taking a team from like borderline into the playoffs to the number one seed in the playoffs going into it, it's a heck of an accomplishment. That's like probably a 10 or 15 game changeover from the previous year. But just to get there is a lot for a lot of people. And I feel like the pieces that they have are great pieces, but I feel like they don't have that 1-2 punch like with Luca and Kyrie, and I feel like that's why they're about to get eliminated. So crazy.
And I will say this, you know, if it turns out that series turns out the way that it could go, which is Dallas closing them out, and then same goes for the Wolves, you know, getting past the Nuggets. Man, that would be an incredible finals that have the Dallas Mavericks, have Luka in those guys going up against, you know, Ant and Cat and all those other guys. That would be an insane matchup. Like that would be something that I would tune into. You know, you have Kyrie Irving versus, you know, Anthony Edwards. Man, like I'm
That'd be
just saying
crazy. That'd be
that would
crazy.
be crazy.
But
You know,
I don't see the Nuggets. I don't see the Nuggets not winning. I like love those guys. I love Anthony Edwards. He's great.
I had the Nuggets closing out that series, and yet they did not close out Game 6. Like I
They weren't
had
going to
them
close
close
out Game
out that
Six.
series. Like
Yeah.
I was like, okay, they woke up, they got, you know, they got the sucker punch. They woke up, they gonna close this out and not like let up, you know, after that. But they did. So I don't know. Like
I don't know.
I, you know, when you have that 3-2 lead and you allow a team to even it out with you, I feel like that changes the momentum of a given series. I don't care if the team, you know, for that game 7 is visiting or it's a home game. I feel like that a lot, you know, places that confidence back in that team's hands that evened out the series 3-3 to enter into game 7 thinking that they have a clean slate. So
I don't know,
time will
bro.
tell.
I don't know.
Time will
Yeah, time
tell.
will tell, but I don't know. I don't know. I feel
So
like we're going to be. I feel like we could take a friendly wager. I think the Nuggets are going to pull it out. They are the home team. You know, they lost the last game handedly, but I feel like that's just what happens. Like, the Timberwolves were on their floor and they like
I
just got
think
them
I
out of
think
there.
I'll make this wager. I will say that I believe that it's not going to be what we've seen in the prior 6 games where like the teams have won decisively. This is going to go down
Hmm.
to the wire. It may
Hmm.
even go more than one overtime, but I do have the Wolves potentially eking it out. And the only reason why I say that is just by virtue of Anthony Edwards. When you have that player that has a team believing in what they're capable of as a team, and he has like that unbreakable confidence in terms of what, you know, what his team is capable of and what he's able to do in carrying the team, there's something very, you know, what is it? What's the word that I'm looking for? Infectious about that. where you have your team believing in what they're capable of doing and what their what the possibilities are, where they can go. And I feel like that's what he's doing with the Timberwolves right now.
Yeah, but his best two players are not checking their best player, so that's a problem. That's a problem. I feel like
We'll see.
if you got two of the biggest kids on your team, and we get a third guy to check their big guy, I feel like that's not a recipe for success. If we got, because they got Rudy Gobert for Joker. They got Gobert for Joker. That's what they got him for. The GM of the Timberwolves now put the Nuggets together. He got Gobert because he knew that Joker was going to be a problem for years to come. In the same vein of Edie to Wemby to me. But, the fact that he's pushed them to a game 7 and they've looked inept. They haven't looked like they can guard him. They we talk about street clothes all the time. Street clothes look better against Joker than these two guys have looked. So to me, I just feel like.
But I'll say this. I agree that Jokic is going to get his stats. He's going to get, what he gets. But if you can shut down, Jamal Murray, if you can shut down what is it?
Michael Porter Jr. Yeah.
Shut down Porter, then I feel like that's a whole different ball game. Jokic is going to get his 20, 30 points and maybe his 7 or 8 assists. But if you can shut down the supporting cast, I feel like you have a shot.
Even I don't know if that's going to happen.
Even
we'll see
everything that Jokic does. So
if Anthony Edwards wins this game, he is Michael Jordan Jr. I will say that. If he wins this game, I'll be like,
he is
him. He's him. Yeah.
So, all right. So, getting into our main topic today, I wanted to get into some business news, which I feel like we don't do a whole bunch on here, but I still feel like it's relevant because these are, iconic, establishments as I have listed here, and that's with locations of Red Lobster closing. Our seafood favorite among many folks, and then also the Mirage, closing its doors in Vegas, which is an iconic spot, on that Vegas Strip. So, Spillman, what are your thoughts in either case? We can start with Red Lobster briefly, or we can dive into the Mirage.
I feel like the Red Lobster one is a more indicative of the state of the economy and where we are as a culture. I feel like the Mirage is a singular entity. Sure, it's a Las Vegas institution, but I feel like those close, like one of those ones that seems like it's been open for a million years, closes. It's sad to see it go, but Las Vegas, they'll close a hotel and reopen one, and it won't be like you're missing anything because styles change and everything. Was the Mirage the place where Tupac was beating up? That was the Mirage where they had the Mike Tyson fight that Tupac died at. I think it was, because the Mirage is the one.
You sure it wasn't the MGM Grand? I could be wrong.
It's one of the two. It's one of those two, because those were the two big ones in the 90s.
They had a lot of the boxing matches at the MGM Grand, but I will. We can go ahead and continue.
We're doing it. We're doing it. So yeah. Anyway, that's the thing. But the fact that people are not buying Cheddar Bay biscuits and endless shrimp anymore, we're headed for bad times, ladies and gentlemen.
Well, no, I feel like there's more to that. I'm glad that you brought that up, because kind of similar to what we were discussing before. Let me see. Sorry, I was still trying to look that up for you guys. But considering what we were talking about before with what is it, MTV, and with ESPN, like a lot of those things that you felt like you can only get at Red Lobster, a lot of those things you can get at a grocery store now.
Yeah.
Like, there's no need to actually go to the restaurants these days, because they have, I guess you can say, they have franchised out a lot of their unique dishes and their unique products and you can actually just buy it directly from a grocery store without even stepping foot into the restaurant. Like they sell those cheddar biscuits now. Like you don't have to go to Red
They
Lobster
do.
just to get cheddar biscuits. So like there's no need. They don't have that as a staple to attract people to go to Red Lobster anymore. So like I feel like it's just also outside of what you were saying, I feel like it's also a nature of how people are buying their products. Again, how people are consuming their content, but also in this case, how people are consuming the products. And if you don't have a hold over the industry of being the only destination where you can get that product, and you are expanding where it's available, the need for you to go to the source is not as attractive or as necessary as it used to be. And I mean, I don't get me wrong, like growing up, Red Lobster was another thing, another staple that was a part of,
Yeah,
my growing up. Like, my family, whenever there was some type of function, I don't know if it was like that with your Spillman, but I'm sure other folks that are watching now, is like Red Lobster was a big part of my family, because whenever we had some type of function, you had a funeral, went to Red Lobster. We had a graduation, we went to Red Lobster. Like we had a birthday, we went to Red Lobster. Someone retired, we went to Red Lobster. Like Red Lobster was a staple in terms of any type of family function that we had. Like that was one of, I mean, outside of Red Lobster, of course, there were a couple of other ones, and some of those chains don't even exist now. But Red Lobster was one of those places that was a staple, a part of growing up. And, of course, the cheddar biscuits, of course, the coconut shrimp, and of course, like, so many other things that, came with that. When you first entered into the restaurant, of being able to look at the lobsters, I remember as a kid, being fascinated of looking at the lobsters in the tank, when they had it in the waiting area before they seated you. So, so many things that, come to mind when thinking about Red Lobster. It's unfortunate that locations are closing. But again, I think it's also a nature of the day and age that we're in terms of how people are consuming not just our content, what we were talking about earlier, but in the case here of how they're consuming the product that have been synonymous with Red Lobster. That is no longer synonymous with Red Lobster anymore. Like you can still have those things without actually going to that place anymore.
yeah. Well, ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to debut a new animation right now. I've
Okay.
discovered it.
Okay.
Um, we'll do this for Red Lobster closing.
There we go.
Very sad, very sad. But
So,
just Red Lobster closing is sad. But I feel like this is also indicative of, like you said, styles and flavors changing. People are getting the boil bags now. It used to be you would sit down, like you people do not order DoorDash with Red Lobster. They order a boil bag. You see them all the time with the boil bags, because that flavor profile is completely different than anything that Red Lobster was doing. Red Lobster was doing like traditional New England style steamed seafood without much seasoning or anything. But
and then I
the
was going to say,
Cajun style.
I'll also say this too, and then and you may agree with me or not, but they're far more than what it was when Red Lobster had like the market on lock when it came to seafood. There are far
Mhm.
more options that people can take advantage of if they want to go to a seafood restaurant. I
Yeah.
mean, we have Clyde's now that people
Hmm.
love Clyde's. I mean, you also have just mom and shop places that are seafood places that people go to get their seafood. And just like you were saying, more oftentimes than not, people don't really want to sit down at a restaurant to eat a lot of seafood. They rather, buy it and take it home, because let's be honest, a lot of times when you're talking about
It's
seafood,
messy.
it can get thank you. It gets messy, and you rather be at home, cleaning it up versus, being at a restaurant. And, maybe if you're going out after you're leaving that restaurant, of still having, the mess of all the seafood that you were eating, getting on your clothes. Like if you're at home, you don't care. Like you
You got
have what you
sweatpants
have.
on, right?
Right, you have your newspaper, right, and you have your spread of your seafood, and you diving in. Versus like, gosh, maybe I have to like be careful about this butter sauce not getting on my slacks, or like not getting on my jeans because I'm going to dysfunction after I leave this restaurant. Like more often times than not, people rather eat that at home because just as we said, it can get messy when you're talking about crabs or shrimp or any of that stuff that people enjoy in terms of their seafood. So but I don't think we talked about it all that much of Vegas. Or remind me, like you have been to Vegas, right? Or you haven't?
Actually, ladies and gentlemen, no, I've never been to Las Vegas. I was supposed to go once and did not go on that trip, but I'm looking forward to a possible trip in the future to Las Vegas.
Okay.
We are at the conference age where people go to conferences, and that's the greatest conference town in the world, Las Vegas.
Gotta go to CES with me, man.
CES.
We'll knock that off your bucket list. We'll knock the Vegas
There
thing
you
off
go.
your bucket list.
There you go. I could, I could cosplay as Ace Rothstein, and I could be like, I'll set the number for you, Brandon. I know the overs. But I looked it up. Tupac wasn't at the Mirage, like you said. He was at the MGM Grand. I figured it was one or the other because it was like it's either the Mirage or the MGM.
That's like the staple, like boxing location is the MGM Grand.
Yeah. So sorry, Pac. But sorry, Mirage. It was a great hotel. But
and I mean,
they swapped these out.
I myself didn't know this because, like, I'll be honest, like even though Vegas was always on my bucket list, I've been a couple of times, but I just started going. Like my first time going was about 2 years ago, where believe it or not, where I actually started going to Vegas. So I wasn't even privy to the fact that it actually supersedes the Bellagio. The Bellagio that's so famous for like its fountains. It was a staple there before the Bellagio was there with the fountains that it had at the that you have at the Bellagio. That's become so synonymous with Vegas, and you see in a lot of movies. Like I keep thinking of Ocean's 11 when I'm thinking of the Bellagio. But that actually came that staple and that spot, that destination came before the Bellagio, that also is synonymous with Vegas. So just as you said, though, if we're talking Vegas, it is going to get replaced by a brand.
It's going to be something else.
No, it is.
So it's not as sad. Yeah,
replaced by Hard Rock. It's going to be replaced by Hard Rock, and the hotel, from what I understand, is going to be shaped as a guitar. So
see, there you go. It's going to be something totally new. That's an attraction. But like Red Lobster closing, that's scary. It's like y'all don't like seafood no more.
It's too bad that it comes at the expense of the Mirage.
Yeah,
so that's the only thing. It would be cool to still have the Mirage around, because it is cool to be able to walk past the Mirage and to have that staple there. Because I still feel like even though the Bellagio is kind of taking over that role in terms of like those staples of Vegas, I still feel like it's an end of an era, and it is something that is synonymous with Vegas. And it's a shame to have it, go, unfortunately, but it is what it is. It'll be coming down this July. So in a couple of months. So there you go.
Oh, then we'll have some cool footage later of it collapsing, because in Vegas, they don't mess around. They just knock the building down. They say, we're knocking this down. Something new is coming, ladies and gentlemen. So.
That's fair. So we'll more likely have a follow-up with this of them doing demolition on it. But that's going to wrap up this edition of This Week in Pulp Culture. Of course, I want to thank my my co-host here, Mr. Spillman Trueheart, a.k.a. Spills. Spillman, can you tell folks where they can find you, sir?
Yes, you guys can find me on Truly Spill. Thanks to the fans for the cool birthday wishes over the last couple of weeks. I really appreciate it, and thank you for all the love. check us out weekly. We try to do this later in the day, like Brandon was saying, but this morning because we had some things. Um,
Oh,
uh-oh.
okay. All right.
No video feed, ladies and gentlemen. That's terrible.
We'll
But
we'll take a
we're
look at
done with
that.
this show.
We'll take a
This
look at
show's over. Yeah,
that.
thanks, Ray. But
Must be a glitch going, but it's all
yeah,
good.
there's something going on. But yeah, so check us out. Hopefully, y'all can see us once we post this, like to the web. Maybe the live feed is just messed up, but the real feed will stay. We pray. Otherwise, we might have to do a repeat of this whole show. Back to you, Brandon.
So yay, the wonders of doing a live stream, right? The fun nature of doing a live stream. Sometimes things happen. So we'll look into that. Appreciate you, Ray. But yes, I'm your host, Brandon Choi, also co-creator of Movers and Shakers Unlimited. You can find me at Brandon Choi ENT on X or Twitter, however way you want to call it these days. But also Brandon Choi, Ian _ ENT on Instagram. Thank you guys so much for watching. Be safe out there, and see y'all soon, guys. Peace.
That's right, ladies and gentlemen. Peace.